Cheryl Turk likes having teens around her house. Mary Grace thinks sometimes letting go is the only answer. Barbara Simonai is a mother who's lived with teenage drug abuse. Pam Turtelot, mother of weekend teens. Gina Denica, who believes in keeping children involved. Linda McNamara, whose 13-year-old is just beginning the teen saga. Carolyn Krager is looking forward to having teenagers. Jo Lewis maintains an open relationship with her teens. Carol Coleman Michelson feels teenagers need to be understood. Gloria Macklin got smarter as her kids got older. And Kathy Potter, with a 6-month-old, is looking forward to some good advice, which I hope we can give you today, Kathy. Along with all of you, stay tuned for Woman to Woman. Teenager, and sometimes it's an even tougher time being the parent of a teenager. I remember that my son and I had always had a very close relationship, and suddenly at 13 I became the enemy. Not quite sure how it happened, but I went from best friend to enemy. And the years since then have been somewhat of a struggle that I don't think I'm alone in having. Cheryl, what's it been like for you with teenagers?
Well, when you say stranger, it's really kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I make a little joke every now and then about where my son lives. My son is 16. And if our address is 1151, then I say, he actually resides at 1151 and a half. I knock on the door when I have to gain entrance, and he has a sticky door that is that way on purpose. So after about the third and you're in, then he knows. He's ready for you. But I like giving him that space because I think he needs it, because he has 2 sisters, and there's Mom and Dad.
But at least he lets you in the door, still. Mary, how about you? What's it like?
Well, mine are raised. I have 4. I think letting go is a very important thing with children, especially teenagers. And I think letting them know the authority and the feeling and giving them a lot of love, I think that's very, very important. Mm-hmm. And also not binding too tightly.
Man, it's so hard to do, isn't it?
It is. It's very hard.
Gloria was 7, 8. There's only, the 7's a little below the teenage years. But what about the others? How have you let go?
Well, the way I do it, I just turn them over to the Lord. That's my way of doing it. But I had one daughter. I have 6 daughters and 2 sons. And they were all teenagers together. The youngest is 13. I was really happy to hear you say that, Pat, because he's just at that age. In fact, before I left for the studio this morning, he didn't say goodbye. He said bad bye. I asked his permission to say it. He said, sure, you can say it. So it's always so good to know somebody else is going through that. But the others were girls. I had 5 girls in a row. So they kind of all were teenagers together, and one in particular, when she was 16, it was like there was a solid wall between us, communication-wise. No way could I thought I'd lost this girl forever, and one day I get this phone call. Well, I just came home, and my oldest son ran out, and he says, Mother, he says, the police department called. My daughter was arrested for selling dope, and I mean, I was totally shocked because I didn't know that she was doing anything. It was marijuana. It turned out that she bought 2 marijuana cigarettes for 50 cents and sold them and got caught. It turned out to be the best thing that happened because it really scared her, and it made me release her. And I told her that I had given her to God. I says, I can't handle you anymore. I says, I just throw my hands. Well, that, for some reason, affected her in a good way because she realized, hey, my mother's not going to do anything with me anymore. And it caused her to really think about her responsibility. We now have a wonderful relationship. I want you to know that wall is gone. She ended up going to a parochial high school, graduating with high grades, and she has had her downs, and now she's on her way to
a success story. Boy, that makes us all feel a lot better.
It's
and yet that
encouraging.
sense of being out of control that you described, when you could not reach her, that wall that was between you, is what so many of us as parents of teenagers face. Dr. Dori Winchell is a psychologist whose specialty is dealing with teen problems. What do we do about that feeling out of control?
Well, I think it's a feeling out of control coupled with the lack of communication, the shutting down, the teenager not wanting to talk to you. And you feeling frustrated and thinking, well, maybe if I did something better or something more appropriate that I could reach my teenager. And I think it's a stage, and I think it's a communication stage, and what we need to do is learn the language of communication that the teenager is dealing with at that certain age level.
And many times it is a different language than you've been speaking
That's
before to one another.
That's right,
when
exactly.
The lines have been open. Mahala, out of control.
Well, I think one of the ways of getting out of control is blaming someone or some institution. We shouldn't blame a divorce for the child's problems or the teenager's problems. We shouldn't blame the school for poor grades. We should make the teenagers responsible for their own behavior. And you release and you let go, and you stopped rescuing. And the blaming game is one of the best games in the United States. We find the president blames people, we blame people, and when you stopped rescuing, she knew that she was responsible from now on for her behavior.
You mean
And
we can't even blame adolescents? Come on. Let us at least do that, and we come back, we'll try and talk more about solutions. Yes. One of the sure signs that you have a teenager in the house is that closed door, right? It happens when you're the mother of a son very quickly. But it also happens when you're the mother of a daughter. Linda, your 13-year-old daughter, you've always been very close, and suddenly now you're not so welcome at the slumber parties, are you?
That's true. I have always been close with my daughter and done things with her and her friends, the Brownie troop leader and things like that. And slumber parties have been a real fun thing around our house. And I always was in and out of the party, and not being one of the girls, but certainly being a part of it. And now when the girls come over, we set it up, and Mom and Dad go to another part of the house, and I do miss sort of being in there.
And yet, privacy is a very important issue to teenagers. As we found out when we put a group of them together and asked them to talk about it, this is what they had to say.
I want more privacy now. For no real reason. Maybe it's my age. I guess it is my age, but I want more privacy. And I think she takes that as some kind of personal thing. And we have like this little mini war going on in our house now, because every time I come out of my room, I close the door. Every time she comes out of my room, she leaves it open. And so I'll go and close the door. And it's like nonverbal now. But
yeah, my mom, she goes, Ben, can I come in? And she's in the room. And then
what do you say to her?
I just say, well, you're already in. Why don't you knock before you come in? I'm not rude to her or anything, because I'm not doing anything that I wouldn't want her to see, but I just would like the privacy, and so I'll say, Mom, could you please knock before you come in? She said, yeah, but I mean, look, you weren't doing anything that you're not supposed to be. And I said, well, what if I was? She said, well, you're not. I mean, she just doesn't. Yeah, well, you shouldn't be then, so I am going to come in.
What about going into their room?
I always say, can I come in?
That's what I'll say. I'll just go, Mom, you'd hate it if I just walked into your room all the time. Or she'll be, she looks in my drawers and things that I'm just not used to, And I don't know if she's looking for something, or she'll say, well, I was looking for the scissors or something, and it's just weird to me.
My mom does that every once in a while.
I would hate it. I mean, she would hate it if I did that to her. She would hate it, and she would yell at me if I, came and just barged into her room without knocking.
What about secrets? Are you allowed to have them, or is it an affront to your parents?
No, if I just want to be quiet or keep something to myself, and I don't do that very often, they take it personally. At least my mom does, and I don't know if it's just because we have kind of a love-hate relationship anyway. We always have. And if there's times when I'll just, my mom, because she can tell, she can just look at me from a mile away and tell something's wrong with me. And I'll say, I don't feel like talking about it. I can't explain it. I just want to keep it to myself. She'll just go, oh, okay. And then she'll be like mad at me or pouting or something.
He'll kind of sit down with me and kind of hurt and say, we used to talk all the time, and gives me this big hanging guilt trip, and, what can I say? I say, Dad, I'm happy. I'm telling you everything. And, which I don't, but...
It's a really big thing with communicating, and communication between people, and how secrets get in the way. And she does things like, she lays things on me like, if you keep this to yourself, you're going to get sick to your stomach, you're going to get an ulcer, you're going to be in the hospital in a month. And she doesn't say that, but I mean, she's really into, openness. And she wants everybody to be open about their feelings and things. And I think that's what I was going to say. I don't know, because I'm not going to ask them certain things. To me, it's off limits.
Those are not the teenagers of anyone in this room. I should probably say that. But the issue that was brought up about privacy and about going through their rooms and drawers, etc., it seems like a simple issue, but in fact it isn't. Barbara, in your particular life, it was not a simple issue because something you felt very strongly about. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. I was listening to those children, and I know how they feel, but today many parents, and for good reason, are very sensitive about their children's behavior and communication. I mean, they're beginning to hear a lot about communication breakdown being related to drugs. And most of the time it is, I'm sorry to say. It's not normal adolescence. When you really feel unhappy about your relationship with your teenager and uncomfortable about it, deeply uncomfortable, anxious about it, I haven't yet met a parent that didn't have a serious drug problem that has approached me that way.
When you suspected that with your teenagers, I mean, you had to do something. Didn't you just make it a point to go through their mail?
Yes, it was very uncomfortable. At times, I actually felt nauseated doing that because I didn't want to break into their privacy. I had no idea I would be placed in that position when I was raising my children because we'd always had a very open, very happy family. But in order to find out just how deeply involved they were, we had to do that. We searched their drawers, and I recommend that to parents in order to help their children survive. If they suspect drug use, they must search their drawers and their things, and they mustn't give them privacy. Because one parent that approached me finally got into the room when they placed their child in treatment, and the closets were full of bottles. There was paraphernalia all over the room, and it just takes longer to get to the bottom of the issue. I mean, they're just that much further from treatment or help if you don't speed it up by checking their things.
And yet a mother such as yourself, Joe, who wants to maintain that open relationship you talked about, what do you do about closed doors and trust or lack of it?
Well, I try to keep my bedroom door closed so that they can't get in, but I'm not always successful. I think that we're in some kinds of ways an exception because my husband and I both have jobs where we have the summers off. Our house ends up being the gathering place. When we go to the beach, there are 15 chairs lined up because all the teenagers in the neighborhood bring somebody or whatever. And so, really, the privacy problem is my problem. I'm fighting to get it. And I think what this woman is talking about, I don't know about that. I would hate to be in that position. I guess what I want to ask is, this isn't for everyone. You're not suggesting that everyone. This is when you've already recognized that there is some kind of problem.
Not necessarily. It's when you're really getting anxious. Gut feeling. I recommend going with the gut feeling. And when you're anxious enough to begin any suspicion at all, you better look into it because it has worked for all the parents that I've dealt with. When they have gotten anxious enough to have any suspicion at all, that's been the reason.
What do you recommend about this privacy issue?
I think there are several good points that were made in the discussion. I think gut issues, if you feel that your child or your teenager has some behavior that you're not comfortable with, you're the one that's responsible. It's not a popularity contest. You're legally responsible. You're morally and ethically responsible, and you have to do what you have to do.
We'll come back right after these messages, so stay with us.
They pull trips like that on you, you're also left with a sense of powerlessness, and so you're left with this livid rage that you can't express. And if you scream at them, what sometimes they'll do is they'll say, lately he hasn't been able to take criticism, or lately he's been really active. And what it is this blind rage that you can't express, and you just...
What gets you so angry when I start having my own values and they keep on saying, no, that's the rules and there's no doubt about it. So it's really hard when I know where they're coming from, but I know I can't do anything to change it.
I think parents are just as confused as we are because, my mom, she'll baby me and spoil me and stuff, and then the next minute she'll say, you should be responsible, you should do this, and I'm not doing your laundry anymore, and, it's it's hard.
Parents have to make tough decisions. Mary, you had to make a real tough decision once.
Well, it worked out quite well in the end. My one son started showing signs of problems in the 8th grade. He was going to parochial school, and the nuns wouldn't keep him on the school ground during lunchtime because he and some other fellows were going over next door playing with cars and whatnot. Well, I'd have to go down, pick him up, bring him home, give him a hot lunch, and take him back again. Years later, he said, Mom, those were the best days of my life. But it showed up more as he went to high school. He was staying out till all hours. He wasn't conforming with the rules of the house. And we had certain rules that everyone had to follow. My husband, being in the business he was in, said maybe he saw so much of the bad side with youngsters that maybe he was a little too strict. But he didn't think so. But you have to have authority in whether you're running a home, a country, or anything. Someone has. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, so my son was staying out later and later. He wasn't talking to the family, go in his room when he'd come home, and that was it. So one night when he graduated from high school, my husband said, you're welcome to stay at home, and we love you, but you have to obey the rules of the house. That's all I'm telling you. And if you don't want to obey the rules of the house, then you cannot stay here. That's all you have to do is stay home. So my son chose to leave and go to live with his family that he'd gone to school with one of the sons. And he went down there and lived with them for about a year and fooled around. And my husband said at the time, now, he's gone. He either makes a man of himself now, or he'll never become a man. Now, you don't call him. You don't send him a dime. You have nothing to do with him. And for about a year and a half, I would say about 2 or 3 times out of the week, I would cry myself to sleep because I couldn't, my son didn't communicate with us, and it was really a very hard time, but I knew I had to follow my husband. You have to stand behind what your husband says. So one day we received a letter after he'd gone through Orange Coast for 2 years, and he said, Dear Mom and Dad, I've been accepted at UCLA, and if I go, can I live at home, and I'll drive back and forth. And my husband wrote and said, you're welcome to come and live at home. We're just waiting for you to come. So he did, and he drove back and forth to UCLA for the 2 years. He graduated with a B in English from UCLA, and now he's the greatest man you ever met.
Barbara, another tough story in terms of parenting and getting through. You did fine with the first one, and then all of a sudden, problems.
Well, yes, I was thinking when Gloria was talking about her situation, it's not that simple to put them out when they're drug dependent because it just goes downhill. It continues to progress. And I learned of the drug situation in my family. I had worked in the Capistrano School District for about 8 years as a supervisor. And so one time I worked quite a long time at one high school till they could hire someone full-time, and I saw my oldest son's boys going up to this particular area where the kids indulged in that sort of thing. And so I asked him if he was smoking marijuana, and he said yes, he was, and that he was enjoying it and intended to continue. Well, I hadn't dug into I hadn't researched it at all. I could just see the deterioration, visually. And I went into a real tailspin for about 6 years or 7 years until I did find material on this. In the meantime, we learned that our other 2 sons also were using, and their grades were poor. The 2 older boys did manage to get by in high school. The younger one started being very truant and hard to manage. Everything really fell apart until we became educated. When I started researching what the effects of drugs were, I no longer was hysterical, and I understood dependency, and I understood that they needed help, and that they were afflicted with a disease that we needed to stand by them. So I just kept digging and learning until we could confront them intelligently and insist on certain certain action after that.
Fortunately, let's hope that fortunately all parents won't deal with maybe something as serious and as difficult as drug abuse, although thousands more, millions more, that's true, millions more every year are confronting it. But in just the day-to-day life with a teenager, there are always those decisions, those tough decisions that parents have to make, the rules, keeping the rules. How important are they? Rules, curfews, this is our way, you do it our way, or you don't live with us.
I think rules are very important, and I think rules are important for the teenager and for the family. And I think a lot of times you have to let someone go to keep them. And I think, as I was telling Pat, I have one patient who came in and just said, I'm so thankful that my mom said I had to be in. And I just thank my lucky stars, because then I didn't have to talk to my peers and they didn't make fun of me, and I could blame it on my mom. And I'm glad.
So sometimes it's okay to be mean old mom, right?
Absolutely.
We'll talk more about this. Woman to Woman continues. I think you'd agree that ranking very high among the concerns of parents of teenagers is sexual activity among teenagers. Drug abuse and sexual activity is certainly great concerns. Here, these half children, half adults. What do we do? Cheryl, do you have those kind of frank discussions and concerns? How are you handling that issue?
Well, first of all, I was a little bit surprised. For some reason, we all think that teenagers are going to wait till some golden age before they have their first love affair or their first sexual encounter, whatever. The first thing I discovered was, my son had to be 13 at the time. He's 16 now, so this has been a few years ago. And I came into his room, not first, and he was there with tears in his eyes. So there's this big strapping guy with all these muscles, and he's laying up there with tears in his eyes. I said, what is the problem? And at first he couldn't talk. He's shaking away tears. Then he lays it on me that his girlfriend is leaving town. Well, when I found out what the story was, the mother was sending the daughter away because she felt that my son and her daughter were getting way too close. In other words, they were seeing each other morning, noon, and night. This was during the summertime, and they were seeing each other a lot more than I knew. And when I talked to the mother, I found out that she was able to witness a lot more going on than I had been able to, because I was a working parent, And so that was my first eye-opening. 13-year-old boy, where do you go from here?
Well, he learned early the consequences of deep, intimate involvement. 13.
Yeah.
Well, some of the teenagers that we talk to are close to that age, and certainly some of them not much older, and I think you'll find it eye-opening what they have to say about sex in their lives.
Just the basic value that my parents have always told me is don't have sex with anyone unless you love them. And it's always kind of stopped there. And they've never gotten into anything like things that are real things that happen a lot. I mean, lust, or, if you've been drinking, lust, passion, spontaneity, all those things, one-night stands, I mean, whatever. And my parents know that that's out there. I mean, they've been around much longer than me, but we don't really talk about those things.
Dad's always warning me about guys and what animals they are, and he's always saying, no, you have to be sure that that you're under control of the situation and make sure you're able to say no and so he's always giving me sort of kind of like hints and tips about. So he's very open about it. My dad, he'll joke to all of us. I mean, because I don't know, he expects that we know a lot, I guess, and he's never really sat down, do you want to discuss? But it's, he jokes. And
what about people coming over when they're not there?
Yeah, things like that. And I mean, I remember one time and I was so surprised because my mom, she came home from work, and my parents both work, and so they're gone during the day, and she came home, and there was a friend who was a guy, and he was just over, and we were in my room, and she came home and she just said, don't ever do that again. While I'm gone, don't ever have a guy in your room while I'm not here. And I was really surprised that she'd even have that in her mind.
So I mean, they were once kids too, and why did they suddenly just? I mean, were they such bad kids that they're worried that their kids are going to follow them?
It comes down to trust. I mean, whether they're just
scared about you know, hurting yourself or getting hurt, I mean, that's all right, but it just kind of comes down to trust, and when you're with guys, there's less trust there. At least I
Girl
don't.
says, you know, you have sex when it's right for you. Hopefully, it's not right for you after you're you know, drunk and can't walk, and you just find some guy and you decide to have sex with him. Hopefully, that's not going to be right for you.
What if it's right for you and you're 16 years old and you want to bring your boyfriend home and spend the night in your room? Is that okay?
I don't know, because that's your little girl or little boy growing up.
That's right.
And even though parents think they're open-minded, I mean, you know, that's just one more way of proving that you're growing up, and parents can't handle that.
It is real tough. Linda, you've got a 13-year-old. Young, but are you already starting to think about sexing this 13-year-old?
Well, I've thought about that. I do know some 15-year-old girls that are sexually active. Hopefully, my daughter will not be, but I know that Hope doesn't do a lot. And I just thought about what they said about would I let the 16-year-old come into the house and use the bedroom to be sexually active. That will be a real hard thing to decide, because one of the things that I don't want is for her to be sexually active in the back seat of a car. So I really don't know, Pat, what I will do when I'm faced with that. And being a liberal person, I might opt for her coming home. I don't think I'd like that.
It's a tough one, isn't it, Jean? Have you solved it?
Yes, I think I've said before that I spent a great deal of time teaching my sons and their friends about family life education, the full spectrum. But then, as I said before, my son said to me, but I understand all that up here, but my body says something differently. And so we have, I think I also told you about the 16-year-old girl who's been pursuing him actively. The whole house belongs to my sons. You know, I have no places where they cannot go inside the house. In the back of the house, I've built my private office, which is mine. I keep the key in a certain place in the house. So one night I was on my way out to my office. It was dark, with my papers in my hand, and my son rushes out. You know, there's no lights out there. And I said, "What are you doing?" I'm just showing her your office. And I said, "In the dark, you were showing her the office?" And I told him, I said, "You know, I have a rule. You don't bring girls into the house." And I don't want him to become sexually active until he's older, because I don't think he's mature enough yet to handle all the ramifications of that. But he knows all about family life education.
Any parent given an option will want their child, their daughter, or their son to become sexually active until all those issues were resolved. But we are living in a world where that's probably wishful thinking, unfortunately. So what kind of messages do we give?
I think your message is excellent, and I think the message has to be to educate, to teach our children about sexuality in an open, non-defensive manner, and not non-judgmental manner, and that sex is more than just a physical act, that it's an emotional, sensitive act of bonding between two people that care and love one another, and that it cannot be taken lightly. And I think if you give that message to your teenagers, that I think they'll appreciate it, and especially if you live by your message.
That's the important thing. Do as I do,
That's
not just
right.
as I say.
That's
We'll
right.
be back in a moment. I hope you stay with us. After talking about all these problems, it's hard to get to the issue of trust, isn't it? And yet it's a very essential issue in any relationship, especially parent and child. Mahela, what do you think about that?
Well, I think you really do have to trust them, and you have to trust them to be able to correct a mistake. I have a girl that's ready to leave for college, and it came spring quarter, and she still didn't have her dorm assignment, and let's see, it went on into June, and it came into July, and she was to send in a certain amount of money to go to orientation. Now, I can understand her being afraid, and understanding sometimes keeps us helpless, you know, but I just stayed firm, and my husband and I were both together on that. We did not interfere with filling out her application and sending it in with the check. Well, finally, she sent in the money, and she got the check back. There were no more openings. Now, that took a lot of guts, because I know she said, oh, well, you want me to go to college. I did, but I wanted her to make the decision and do the follow-through. Well, as a result, she went down, and we're very active in positive peer groups. One of them is the swim team. She went down, went to see the coach of the swim team, and worked out a couple of times. She has her dorm room. She has her schedule all set up. She didn't need me.
So trust them to make their own decisions and stand firm in what you believe. Pam?
I am in a pretty lucky position sometimes. My daughters are my stepdaughters, and I can stand back a little. That one little step back makes it a lot easier to look at the whole picture.
Yeah. Cheryl, can you trust teenagers?
I always start out with the premise that I'll trust you as long as you show yourselves to be trustworthy. Prime example is my son and the car. Okay, I feel that as long as he shows himself to be trustworthy, he brings the car in all in one piece, no dents and scratches, brings it in on time, has put in the proper gas, and etc., that I have before me all the examples that he did what he was supposed to do. However, and I just let him know that just because I do this does not mean that I don't trust you. It's just that I know that you are an adolescent. Knowing that, and this is just part of your makeup, this is what you're going through as you're going from one stage to another. You're just passing through. I will do some checking up every now and then, and you may look in your rearview mirror and see me following you. And, I just let him know.
But it's not that I don't trust you just because I'm following you.
Exactly. It's just that, anyone is likely to be checked upon at any time, and I think that keeps them stepping a little bit, too.
Right.
And there's another point that I think is very important, to let them know that we care by checking into them. Is, for example, if somebody wants to sleep overnight, to find out, and you don't know the people, to check on where they're going and get the phone number and talk to the people. And to, like one time, my daughter had this boy coming over who I'd never met, and I just had this feeling about it. I had never met him before, so I asked him, I said, do you smoke marijuana? And my daughter was so embarrassed. But as a result, afterwards, the boy disappeared. She never did go out with him.
Better to ask the question.
Yeah. If you want to be a good parent, you have to make a decision. Do you want to be popular or a good parent? You can't be both.
And also, perhaps if we expect the very best of our children, if we always expect them to do and act their very best, then we will get that in return. If we have ideas that they will always be their worst motives at work, then we will get less than what we're hoping for.
Dr. Winchell?
I think trust is on a continuum, and there are different situations of trustworthiness depending on who the teenager's involved with and what activity the teenager is engaged in. And I think trust has to be viewed in the context of proving and nurturing. And I think parents really need to feel that trust has to be earned.
And somehow they grow up and we all live through it, don't we? We'll be back in a minute. I only wish I'd sat down in a room like this and talked with other mothers of teenagers about 4 years ago. I think those years up until 18, my son is now 18, would have been a lot easier for me, and I hope we've made it a lot easier for some other parents listening. And Dr. Winchell, thank you for making it easier for us. As parents, we have a great need to be needed, and teenagers have a great need not to need us. So it's a good time to remember that woman to woman, we do need to help each other get through this time.
Woman to woman, heart to heart, nothing can ever stop what we start.
Why are women's friendships so close and so vital? We'll explore the special kind of support